Skeleton in the airport? Is anybody else seeing what I'm seeing? Does anybody else see the wraith draped in black robes flitting their way through the crowd? I'm 21. It was my very first time visiting Montreal. It was my very first time in North America, and I just wanted to make my way back to my home country of Egypt. I had never been to a country without being packed with all these old houses. I had never been to a country that was just swathed with highways and big box stores. I had never seen so much snow, and I had never seen so many squirrels. But I also had definitely never seen somebody who had his brain tattooed on his head with worms writhing their way through the grooves. I had never seen somebody with their skull tattooed on their face, their nose totally blacked out, their teeth serrating their lips. I shivered. I had grown up really Christian, and my dad was especially very superstitious of demonic energies. So I was not allowed to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but you know I'm watching it right now. I wasn't even allowed to have stuffed animals of dragons because they were like evil animals. And even incense sticks were off the table. So when I saw this man with his tendons drawn, traveling down his neck, I uttered a little prayer where I was like, please keep this man away from me, and I'm so glad that we're not on the same plane. I continued with my airport reverie. I enjoyed a little croissant, a little hot chocolate, and I decided to start catching up with what was going on in Egypt. The date was the 26th of January, 2011. And very recently in Egypt at that time, a man had been killed. His name was Khaled Said, and he used to be studying computer science. He loved music. He was composing a piece of music himself. He was minding his own business when the police approached him and randomly demanded his ID. This was commonplace in Egypt at the time. And in exchange for you giving them a bribe, they would then return your ID to you and allow you to carry on peacefully with your day. So Khaled Said decided to refuse. And at the time, he was brutally beaten to death by the police. His brother, when he went to the morgue, took a photo of what he looked like, and that image went viral. It prompted the start of a Facebook group called We Are All Khaled Said, which was how Egyptians organized our part in the Arab Spring. So later on, that image came to be known, the face that would start a revolution. Yeah. But at that time, when I was sitting in Trudeau International Airport, the word revolution just seemed impossible to me. Egypt was a military dictatorship backed by the US, and they were generally very ruthless to anybody who tried to oppose them. The government would just, erase any sign of protest normally very quickly. So I really didn't think it would amount to anything. And then I heard, the flight to Paris is boarding. Oh, that's me. I have a layover to Paris on my way to Egypt. So I make my way to my gate, being like, just going on my little trip. When who do I see? The skeleton man. I'm like, no! But I'm like, it's gonna be okay. I'm still praying, please don't let him be sitting next to me. Please don't let him sitting next to me. But I'm like, Sarah, the world doesn't revolve around you. You are not the center of the universe. Just because you are on the same plane as this man does not mean that you are going to be sitting next to each other. So I walk down the aisle, and I spot my seat, and I see out of the corner of my eye spider webs adorning someone's ear right in the seat next to mine. And I look down at my ticket, and I look up again at my seat, and I actually laugh. because I am sitting right next to the skeleton man. So I take a deep breath, I sit, and I hear, "Would you like some gum?" "Excuse me," I squeak. "Would you like some gum? It helps your ears with the cabin pressure," he repeats in a very gentle, soft-spoken voice. I was so excited to ask him every question that I could think of. So his name was Rick. He was also commonly known as Zombie Boy. And I asked him, "Why do you have so many tattoos? When did you start getting these tattoos? What can you even do for work with all these tattoos?" And he very kindly answered all of my questions. I was just so enthralled by how nice this person was. I had always thought that maybe some of the things I learned growing up could be wrong, and I was actually really excited to be proven wrong and to realize that I had just misjudged somebody who was just trying to express themselves. And then I followed up with, "Are you visiting Paris?" Because I had been to Paris before, and I was really pumped to tell him everything I knew. And he was like, "No, I'm going for work." It turned out later that it was for a Mugler runway, because I Googled it afterwards. But he didn't mention that at the time. I pointed to the screen on the chair, in front of me, and I said, "I'm going there." And on the screen, there was a rundown of the news, and there was a headline that said, "Violent clashes between protesters and the police in Cairo." And he looked startled, and he said, "Why?" And I said, "Oh, because that's my home." And when I saw that look of concern through this illustrated skull, it was the first time that it really occurred to me, oh, is the danger actually the place I'm returning to right now? I said goodbye to Rick, and eventually another flight after that, and my mom picks me up from Cairo International Airport. I get in her warm, familiar car, Nile FM playing on the radio. That's really the name of the main radio station in Egypt. They were like, "Let's stick to the brand." And my mom says, "Oh, I'm so happy you're back because for my birthday tomorrow." And she says, "We're going to go celebrate at Grandma's." And I ask, "But what about the protests?" She says, No, it's all going to be swept away very easily." So I just start thinking about, I wonder what cake my grandma's going to buy. Maybe I can't wait to hear what jokes my grandpa has for me. I'm excited to catch up with my uncle and my aunt and my cousins and tell them about my trip. Just these family birthdays have been such a safe constant in my life, and I was so looking forward to it. The very next day became known as the Friday of Wrath. Even if you look it up, it's still called that. And that's sort of when it felt like the real demonic energies emerged. Hundreds of protesters who were just trying to advocate for a better life were killed. There were so many tear gas canisters strewn everywhere with "Made in the USA" imprinted on them. It was really terrifying. And the Egyptian government and state media announced that because we had rebelled, they were going to punish us by withdrawing all the police from the streets and allowing mass prison breakouts. Yeah. So it was truly terrifying, and the hysteria spread quickly, just of stories of violent break-ins. And so I even called two of my friends to say goodbye just in case, because I really didn't know what was going to happen that night. It got worse when the government cut the phone lines and the internet, because that was obviously how we were organizing the protests, so they wanted to end that. But that also meant we couldn't call our loved ones. Like, my grandparents lived a 20-minute ride away from us, a drive, and I didn't know, were they gonna be okay? Were they gonna make it through the night? Were we gonna be okay? Thankfully, Egyptian ingenuity is truly a beautiful thing, because very quickly people started figuring out these ways to keep ourselves safe. Truly within maybe a couple of hours, people had made mazes in the streets with tires so that no car could just come speeding through or speeding out of a neighborhood. Brave neighborhood watches were set up in front of every building, and people were armed with just household items. I watched my brother go down tentatively wielding a broom handle with my cousin to join these watches. And it was really inspiring how we as a community kept ourselves safe. And within a few days, I decided that I too wanted to go to Tahrir Square, which was the square where all the protests were happening, because I didn't want to live in that moment and not have been there myself. So I worked up the courage to tell my mom, and she gave me a hug, said, "Be safe," and actually let me go be a witness to this liberation movement happening. And it was really amazing. There were people from so many different religions, like gender identities, skin tones, classes. It was just amazing to see all these different types of people representing things that we're normally told should divide us, but we were all united in this dream that we were going to build a safer Egypt together. Unfortunately, it didn't. The safer Egypt, we did get it for a couple of years, but the demons of authoritarianism soon returned and neocolonialism. And even today, I see people like myself, Middle Easterners and Arabs, it feels like our lives still have very little value. But I learned that year that what I'm fighting against isn't people who look different than me or people who express themselves different from me. The real fight is against systems that want to divide us and keep us small. Thank you.